Welcome back, guys. We are at only 50 weeks left in 2024. And of course, the other key thing to remember, you know what today is? It's one of 4 times out of the year that we like the most. Any guesses? Quarterly tax payment day. There it is. Darlene knew that one. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're newer to the business, this would not be one because you probably, unless you made a great deal of money last year, you want to make one large one if you haven't made any yet. But yeah, get into the habit of making sure that you put your money aside and that you have it all set and you make sure you got those 4 times per year because it will cost you money. So today, gang, we are going to be looking at the purchase agreement. What we're looking at is just a generic version here that all of our offices are a part of. So, guys, high participation today is what I'm going to ask you for. Don't be afraid to take yourself off of mute to take part. And I'm going to pull up a chat just to see that I've got everything. And you guys get to see. So, all right, we should be good. All right. So here we go. For everyone, this is pretty much new to you. If there's anybody on from Century 21 AAA with us today, or if anybody wants a more introduction to all 3 of the documents, I will be at Century 21 AAA in Sterling Heights tomorrow from 3 until 5. I will be at the Macomb office, specifically rolling these out to them and going into more details. So that one will be noon until 2. Show up at 11:30, and I think we're going to have free food for you. So here we go. I'm going to say, guys, if it's really simple or basic, I'm just going to say I'm going to cruise by it. The purchase agreement itself, you're going to fill in a lot of this information. You're going to complete whatever is there. There is a lot of co-listing that goes on out there. So this gives you that opportunity. If 2 of you are working together, you'd put the selling agent and then the co-selling agent. Outside of that, this is going to pre-fill. By the way, if you are part of RealComp, this purchase agreement is live and functioning. Matter of fact, I'm told that there was little things on how the blanks were filling in. I haven't got a chance to check it today, but those corrections were supposed to be made as of yesterday. Property description, pretty much the same, and everything in here is very much the same. What I can tell you is this little part right here, because we've got some outlying offices. Just know that this says, this is our purchase agreement, and not all purchase agreements are written the same, but ours says that any heating, cooking fuel in tanks shall remain with the property. You're going to put on these lines any additional. You know, my book is start with existing, because we are looking for the existing. We don't want to have a seller with the opportunity to be able to take whatever was there and replace in some other used ones that might get slipped in. So keep that in mind, and that's the reason for the existing. A clear case that is different here is this term has been added. But know that unless if it's on the purchase agreement, personal property is not included. Anything that's permanently affixed is. This is the opportunity for us to exclude any permanently affixed items. And if anybody was talking about personal property on the listing and you want to make an offer that's acceptable, make sure you'd put that in here. Paragraph number 2 is new. Why? And why did we leave it separate? we have to address TV mounts and brackets for either TVs or video projection. Both of those are in homes these days. Typically, they're in the wall attached with lag bolts. Therefore, they're permanently affixed. Therefore, those brackets have become real property, no longer personal property. Well, along with that, today's TVs have screws or bolts or nuts that are attaching them to the TV, the projector to the bracket. All we are waiting for is for somebody to go, hey, wait a minute, where's my TV? It was permanently affixed to the wall, therefore it was real property. This is clearly making it stated that if there is a TV or a projector or projection equipment, then it needs to be addressed somewhere else in the agreement. Otherwise, none of that is included, only the brackets. Price is the same, method of payment, still all the same, nothing different there. Seller concessions. Nice part of this is where it's positioned. It's now at the top of a page. So it's hard for anybody to be able to miss that. And you can put either the dollar or percent in that spot. Earnest money deposit is a slight change. If you are one who's practiced the aspect of being able to collect your earnest money deposit X amount of days after acceptance, this is addressing that. So what you could do if you're going to use that philosophy is, I could put 0 and then I'm going to get an additional $5,000 within 5 days of acceptance by the seller, making a total of $5,000. I could say, we're going to give you $2,000 now, and we'll collect an additional $3,000 within 5 days of acceptance by the seller for a total of $5,000. So it just depends on how you want to do it. But again, if you're following with the aspect that you've used, I'll collect it upon acceptance, 0 total amount using $5,000 within 5 days for a total of $5,000. All right. Paragraph number 7, what we know is this. If we've received it at the time of the offer, our brokerage name would be here, be it Coldwell Banker Professionals, Century 21 Triple H, Century 21 Town and Country. It would go here. And your name, then your signature would go here. If you've collected it. We know that if we haven't collected anything, we leave this blank. Closing, very much the same. Nothing really has changed here. Closing costs. This is slightly different, but we're addressing only the closing fee that's charged by a title company now. Other than that, it's all the same. But this is addressing only that. Possession, nothing changed. Other than, I want you to catch this part right here. We used to be just one time. So if it was, say, $3,000, 30 times, well, here, let's do $30 a day. That'd be 900. It would be 900. Now it would be 1,350. So just know that's one change to this paragraph. It's 1.5 times. Going to put a lot of people at rest with those who have been thinking about a damage deposit. We did not add a damage deposit. The aspect from there out, all the same. I just want to throw a reminder. This is a penalty. This part here. If the seller fails to deliver, it's a penalty. Make it hurt. Get out of my house. How much does it take to stay at a hotel per day? What is it now? What do you think? $200? Better make it a lot more than $200 then. Make it hurt. Where would you rather stay, in the house or in a hotel room? Make it hurt. Get out of my house. Okay. Paragraph 11 is a change. We're no longer just saying, hey, it's available, but is it being provided and by who and how much? Not to exceed. So that's real clear. That is a change.
Hey,
Sewer and
Darwin,
water. Yep. Go ahead.
hey, just really quickly, if you could back up 2 paragraphs regarding the occupancy. What is either the benefit or the reason for the additional 50% per daily fee? And where would that money, I mean, it's just more money the title company is gonna grab from the seller.
Correct.
Is
Yeah,
it,
it's kind of becomes an incentive. It's also very customary for the area. I also think it puts a lot of people at ease in regards to not having to have a damage deposit, which would be separate from, but it leaves money in there. So it's just that much more encouragement to make sure that the seller transfers the property in its condition at the time of the offer, the showing, and that they get out on time.
okay.
So yeah, I would just call it probably more than anything else, peace of mind and security. But very customary for most areas that I'm familiar with most of our offices.
Okay, but there's no verbiage in there that separates like what the occupancy part is and what the additional 50% can be used for, or
Nope,
how it would be handled or dispersed or anything like that, correct?
correct.
Okay.
It's just going to hold 1.5 times. If anybody asks me why is it more, just in case you decide that you want to stay there and pay $400 a day.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's the way I would look at it. Absolutely.
Okay.
I got a
I want,
question here, and
yeah, I'm
go
just
ahead.
curious
Well,
if,
hold on. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just curious if agents then are gonna, I guess people may just try and negotiate a slightly lower occupancy rate per day than what they normally would have done, knowing that it's gonna be times 1.5.
My previous experience, we always dealt with 1.5, and it was never an issue.
Okay.
And again, what I would put is just more customary. We were behind both at CBP, obviously Michael, AAA, you were one time, if I'm right. So this kind of moves us to where we're more customary to the purchase agreements that we should see.
Okay, thank you.
Do you remember? So question came up is, why didn't we do a damage deposit? The amount of hassle and responsibility in opening it up for, it has been determined that we just don't want to go there yet. I'm not saying that we wouldn't, but there hasn't been a market demand for that. So why not a damage deposit if I didn't say that yet? Well, here's what it does. You put that onto a purchase agreement, now like what Michael was talking about, on top of escrow, now you're going to put more money off on the side for a damage deposit. Now, what do you as a seller's agent, or what are you going to have to do to protect the seller? You better go over there the day that you've accepted that purchase agreement, better off the day that they actually looked at the property. Is a minimum, take a video, but absolutely take photos of every room so that you have physical evidence as to the condition of the property the day that they wrote the offer. You begin to see what the hassle is, because now when a buyer comes in, what are you going to have to do when it comes to possession time? You know, almost, to me, it's almost like what you have to do if we're doing things right for a rental agreement. And you have to go through an inventory list to check the entire property. And how often have we ever run into an issue that we couldn't get rectified? And I'll tell you the one time, by the way, that I am familiar where there was a damage deposit and there was damage, it didn't make any difference. The only difference was, however, it ended up getting settled between the buyer and the seller, was the money was there once they went to court. They still had to go to court because they couldn't come to an agreement on how that was to be released. So that's the primary reason at this point that we haven't done damage deposits. I got one more question here. The question was, can you use the MLS photos for something like that? You could, but is it going to show enough detail, and is it going to give a full 360 to be able to show what the condition of the property was? Were those unretouched? So that's the part of taking existing ones, but you're just getting the idea as to how much deeper that could get if we would go there. So right now, just hasn't been a necessity. So let's take a look at the sewer water charges again. That actually is the same. There's been no change to that, other than instead of it being boilerplate $300, it's now a blank that is fillable. And you're questioning, well, what do I put in that blank? If you don't know, put $300. But if you're in an area where you know that number is higher, then go 400. It really, as it says, I believe, the title company can actually still require more because they're the ones who are responsible for it. So put a reasonable amount. That's the big key. If it's less, and some of our offices are in areas where water is less, you could put less in there. Title 13, 14, all the same. Taxes. This is not different. But it was interesting because what it brought out is people have finally read it. It's not slapping anybody in the face. It's just they finally read it. And the other is they came to the point of going, wait a minute. Aren't these contradicting themselves? So here's the way it reads. All property taxes due and payable on or before the date of closing shall be paid by the seller. That's simple. Seller's going to pay anything due and payable. Current taxes shall be prorated and adjusted. Now we're talking proration as to how they'll be prorated. They'll be prorated and adjusted as of the date of the closing in accordance with the due date of the municipality or taxing unit in which the property is located. See, some will do a levy of a tax bill on December 1st, but they'll say that it's not due until January 1st. So that's what that's addressing. Well, then to continue on, and it's now underlined, the proration of the taxes will be done as if paid in advance. So there's a difference. To what date will we prorate is the first part. Then we're going to treat them as if paid in advance unless otherwise noted differently. Some of you are going to be in areas where there are municipalities, even a township, so not even a county, but a municipality in where they treat taxes as if they're paid in arrears. So if there's ever a case why we may not want to sell properties in areas we're not familiar with, taxes are a good reason, because you could go do a whole lot of work, screw up, find out that it was paid in arrears and you didn't know, and you just cost somebody a whole lot of money. So make sure you're familiar with how the taxes are treated. Yes.
Hey, it's Renee. I know the new PA is in Remine. Is the verbiage to be added to the PA if we're doing business in one of those counties where one is arrears and one is advanced?
Yeah.
Is there a clause?
There is nothing, but it would be a simple statement that taxes are to be treated as if paid in arrears.
Well, one is arrears and one is advance. I thought we were making a clause for this particular thing. That's what I'm wondering if that's there.
Yeah, yet. I didn't, only because it is that simple. You could take this, proration taxes will be done as if paid in arrears. Change one word. So I could do a clause. I think
we need one, especially for
necessary.
Yeah, especially for Tuscola, because one is arrears, one is advanced.
You got it. I will ask you, Renee, if you would send me an email, and I'll put that in the clauses. Otherwise, I'm standing here and I don't have anything to take notes. I don't want to give myself that chance to miss that. So yeah, if you would do that, I will put that clause in there. Let's see, assessments has not changed. Condo homeowners associations has not changed. The maintenance of the property. The only thing that we did was we bold-faced and underlined so that people know you are to leave the property broom clean, free of debris and personal property. Don't think that we're doing anybody a favor by leaving, you know, paint and some of the patio furniture. People may not want that crap. So this is just trying to make something that's boilerplate stand out as to how they are actually leaving the property. Utilities and how that's supposed to work, risk of loss.
I have a quick
Nothing really-
question.
Yes.
Why didn't we have them initial that paragraph as well? So that not only did they see it, that it was underlined, but that they actually read it and saw it. Is it possible to put that in the future?
You know, I'll tell you, Lydia, on that, there's a lot of things as we put this through several sets of eyes, that suggestions came up and we had to go with what's important. And if the initials are going, how often do we run into it? Does it deal with law, anything of that nature? So this was just a way, because we get some minor issues where they left paint thinking that they were doing favor. They left a little bit of furniture thinking they were doing someone a favor. So I think it's just good practice. We'll highlight it. And, you know, this would be, hey, you know, you're going to say, by the way, seller, at the time of closing, you need to make sure that you just have it broom clean. You don't have to call a cleaner in here. If you do, great. If you don't, it's just got to be broom clean. And by the way, don't leave anything. So that would be the answer to that one, is trying to keep it clean and simple, meaning the purchase agreement without complicating it too much. Disclosures, no change here. Lead-based paint, no change here. Default, no change. Here's just fees, $395. Of course, that's already known. It's on the buyer agreement. It's on the seller agreement. Addendums. We've just put a possibility of any and all addendums, including a generic one. So you got a general addendum. You could check that if you wanted to be more specific. Over here on other, you could put in something specific. Don't know what it would be off the top of my head, but we gave that opportunity as a fillable blank. If you have an addendum at the time period that you've written the purchase agreement, we should be noting it on the purchase agreement so all parties know that it exists. Again, we don't want to commit mortgage fraud by hiding addendums. And if you don't get that, talk with your manager, because I've got a long dissertation on that one. Not for that today. Flood insurance is new. There are areas throughout our 20 offices where we need to be aware of flood insurance. And this is simply putting everybody on notice, because there are people who won't qualify for a home simply because of having to get flood insurance. So, you know, how much time do you put there? Look, you got 10 days for an inspection. Do 10 days for this. That should be plenty of time for you to be able to do any research that you need to. The well and septic system inspection. We're simply putting it out here, addressing it a little bit more specifically to known counties that we have at the time period of putting this together, that these counties or municipalities within, because some of you look at it and you go, Oakland, I didn't know Oakland County doesn't. Well, Oakland County doesn't, but there are municipalities within Oakland County where septic systems still exist, and they're going to want an inspection. I can tell you of one where I had it. Septic system failed. The seller was required to hook it up to the city sewer. It was at street. They didn't have an option at that point. So that's what that's there. And you should have a well septic addendum if it is applicable. Because what we know for certain, Macomb, Washtenaw, Shiawassee, you can't do a sale without having a certified well and septic inspection done. So again, that's just out there. That addendum exists. If it doesn't exist within your packages or your templates, talk to your manager regarding that. It does exist in the Remine packages. Okay, property inspection. So we've gone to a little bit, it looks longer and more complicated, but it's simpler and more concise as to the options. So what I would give you here is we've got a note added that when it comes to FHA, VA lenders and the requirement of an inspection, that the buyer shouldn't rely upon that. That we are recommending, and I want you to see, it's an independent private inspection, not a certified home inspector, not a licensed contractor. So it's saying anybody can do this inspection on behalf of the buyer, including the buyer themselves, right? So that's the first part. But then it does this. Due diligence may include, but is not limited to, and you guys can read, otherwise it's an open book. And you know, the example I give that, I was helping out at Troy a couple months back, and one of our agents had a buyer who took a look at what the taxes could potentially become a day after he got acceptance on a purchase agreement. When he saw the taxes, he says, I don't want it. That was his due diligence. So it's not just a home or property inspection. It is the due diligence. I believe I actually added that it's due diligence because I wanted to highlight that it's not just a property inspection. Now, changes, you got one blank. You have to give a response within blank days from the date of the final acceptance of the agreement. What we know is typically that's 7 to 10 days. That's what's acceptable. If it's less because you're in a competing situation and you know you can get that response done, use less because we're trying to make an offer which can be acceptable to a seller. And then it goes into the 4 options that what if I am dissatisfied? I did my due diligence, I'm dissatisfied. What are my options? Well, there's A, B, C, and D. Okay? And those are all very self-explanatory. Yes, sir.
Let's say it's 5 days.
Okay?
This happened during COVID, so it's
So the question is regarding the number of days that we put in here, and the example we're going to use is 5 days.
buyer was a nurse. She couldn't get it done by the 5th day with her schedule.
So then the buyer can't get it done within the 5 days we agreed to. Could do it the next day.
Seller would not allow.
Seller was not in agreement to allow that to happen. So what happens? Okay, so let's hold that for a second. And I think the obvious answer is there, right? You agreed to do it within 5 days, and it says, if the buyer does not notify the seller in writing within, then you've removed your contingency. And hopefully the seller will give you that time, but we were actually just talking about it. It's a great example of what we were talking about before we got started here. Make sure that you got enough time because you can get busy time periods where you might struggle to be able to find a home inspector that could even come out. So that's a big key. Yes, make a great offer, but make sure that it's potential, the possibility. So if you say 5 days, that's a little bit of a time crunch. Make sure that you can get it done within that time. Part B of the question. Buyers or seller says, no, you can't do it after 5 days. They are entitled to a walkthrough within 48 hours of closing.
Is that allowed?
You can inspect the place, but what are you gonna do?
Still can inspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I dare say the reason that they were going, no, you can't, is because they're thinking you want to do an inspection for the purpose of walking away. But can I bring my inspector over? I don't know why not. Would I think that there's agents that are out there that are gonna go, you can't do that? Yep. A lot of uneducated people out there. And by the way, guys, all of us are not fully educated. If I can tell you where I've spent a number of hours over the last week or two, we don't even know what a transaction coordinator does or what that agency means. Now, that again, that's not negative, but that's within our own company. So, you know, it's just, this is where we're at. And I can tell you that I've learned from the process of going out and teaching all of this. My level of knowledge has gone to a much higher level because of the detail that I had to get into with it. So, good question. Good question. So it looks like we're good there. Let me just check. Yep. Okay. So liability of the buyer of the damage, no change. Municipal inspections is no change. Buyer acceptance, the as-is condition, time for legal action. This is a change and now coordinates with all three agreements. Buyer, seller, and the purchase agreement say that if you're going to bring anything up, you have to do it within 6 months. Showings, there was debate on this one because of ABO. In the end, the resolve was that we're going to leave this the same as we've had it. Therefore, just know, and this is for all of us, because there's a lot of agents who accept an agreement on our purchase agreement, and they will then market ABO. The purchase agreement that they and the buyer, I should say, that their seller has accepted, won't allow that to happen. So if you want to be a stickler, you can say, gee, buyer's agent or seller's agent, take a look at the purchase agreement, paragraph 33. You need to mark that pending. Okay. FERPTA, legally binding, disclaimer, release, the final walkthrough that you were just talking about. And it does get specific, Larry. So I wouldn't go in and say, hey, I'm going to go and do an inspection, but we do want to exercise our right to the 48 hours. Doesn't say how long I need to take to be there and doing my certification. The property is in the same condition, right? And that would be my argument. Yes. Oh, so now we're confessing it was his seller, you guys. I'm giving them a hard time. Yeah, it could be nothing to do with the agent and everything to do with the seller.
Common sense of doing business.
Courteous, fair.
What is the question?
Yeah, it's really just more of what he ran into with that circumstance that we were talking about earlier, where the seller wouldn't allow them to do an inspection on the 6th day. And therefore it was deemed to have been met. He was just talking, this was his seller that was kind of given a hard time. And, you know, look, yeah, it's not always the agent. It is often the party that they're representing. I got another question here.
Emergency, like the inspector had a heart attack and, you know.
Yeah, what about in the circumstances where those really weird things occur? My guess, now here, guys, this is always the way that we cover ourselves. I am not an attorney. So I can only imagine I'd look at the paperwork and go, well, what does the paperwork say? So the only other would be is if there's this, that, or act of God. You know, because that's always in every agreement. Well, is that an act of God that the home inspector had a heart attack? I don't know. Argue that one. And then it's like, well, okay, get another one. So that it's like, who knows how it would be determined? Best thing you can always do, keep to the simplicity of an agreement and meet it. Just meet it, meet to the terms of the agreement. Yep.
Darwin, I have a
Time is of the
question.
essence is a standard clause. David, did I hear you there?
Yeah, I have a question, and it's kind of related to everything we've been talking about. During the denial of extending the inspection date, could the buyer back out of the contract because they are not being allowed their due diligence?
Well, I'm going to say again, I am not an attorney,
Sure.
but they did get their opportunity because they had access to the home for 5 days.
Mhm.
And they are the ones who were responsible for not getting it done during that time period, not the seller. But I also remember, and I don't know if you took Jack Waller's Con Ed this year, or we'll say this past year, but Jack actually had kind of that situation in there where a seller was not allowing the inspection to be completed. And it was filing decision. I think, wasn't it like three or four times before the seller finally gave in. But in a case like what Larry described, you had your time and you did not meet it. It was your fault. It had nothing to do with the seller. So it really would be, as far as I can see, by the terms of the purchase agreement. Oh, well, you should have got in there beforehand. You knew you had 5 days when you signed, when you made that offer. So, let's see.
I mean, in the end here, I think the biggest
Yep, go ahead,
takeaway
Mike.
is, the biggest takeaway is here, we just really have to have those deep conversations with our buyers when you're putting these offers together and letting them know time is of the essence. Okay, you're gonna have 5 days, you're gonna have 7 days, whatever. Have them start looking for inspectors in advance and just have them, be cognitive, everybody, as to your timeline. Because you may get in there, if you have 7 days to do the inspection, you wait till day 6 to do the inspection. And the home inspector says, you know what? These drains are going really slow. You may want to have somebody come in and run a camera down the main drain or something like that. Now you've only got another day left to try and do that. So I always encourage my buyers, let's get in there ASAP right after the offer is accepted, as quick as we can. So that way, if something else does come up, you can still stay within that original timeline. You don't have to worry about arguing over extending the inspection contingency date.
Absolutely. And look, if it's got to be extended and they're saying no, then the buyer's got a decision.
Yep.
Buyer's got to make a decision. And you've got
Seller
4
sign
options.
something.
And one of them is being told no. Well, there you go. I think it's really always important to look. It is important. Timelines matter. And that's what this is saying. So buyer and seller understand that no extensions of time limits contained herein are expected or agreed to unless specified in writing. So we can't expect that it's going to be automatically extended. And, I'll hit one here shortly where we'll talk about it, but it can't be an expectation that it's just automatically going to be extended. Not all people are kind. And not always can it be extended because of extenuating circumstances. Successors and assigns, it's binding between, facsimiles, electronic signatures, so on are okay. Arbitration, and again, people will ask, well, what is the point for arbitration? What should we do? I'm always going to ask this. Well, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, would you want to waive your right to a jury trial? If you do, then agree to arbitration. Okay. Catches miscellaneous stuff that just, with the way that things are now, you have to address. Agency, everybody knows that we are a designated agency company. Therefore, this paragraph 44 has to be completed correctly. And it's exactly what it says. So if we are designated agencies. Now, we are all designated agent companies. But we are separate. So if you're Century 21 AAA, those two offices, that would be in-house. If it was Century 21 AAA with Century 21 SACMAR, that would not be in-house. There are separate brokers and separate broker license that would not solely be a transaction of. And you'll see that that would have your company name in these two spots. Because if it were solely a transaction of Coldwell Banker Professionals, then the broker, which is Coldwell Banker Professional, Century 21 Town and Country, Century 21 AAA North, would be our new one, Century 21 Row. If it was in those brands, then yes, it is solely a transaction, and therefore the brokerage and or all named supervisory brokers are acting as dual agents. Supervisory broker, which you put down on your agreements. Your managers will be instructing you as to whose name will actually be in there. Other terms, condition, the offer will expire upon. Seller acceptance. Spot for the people to check off the appropriate one. Time limit to get that response to a counter offer. Then the bottom line signature. So there you have that. Let me see if there's any questions, or bring yourself off, because I don't have any other questions in the chat room. Questions about anything here, guys? I got a question here.
MLS listing that states
Here, I'm gonna, just so that can be heard.
you have an MLS listing that states home warranty, other options that are gonna be done to the house prior to closing. Now you have, and let's say hypothetically, it states $400,000 as the asking price. Now the selling price or the purchase agreement comes in at, let's say $280,000. Now, do these things that are stated in the MLS automatically transfer to the purchase agreement, even though it doesn't state in the purchase agreement that they're going to provide the home warranty and these other repairs?
Okay. Great question. So we're kind of getting into the what ifs, which I like that one. The what if is simply, if I simplify that, they make all their statements as to how they'll sell the property, at what price. And so if it goes from, what was your amount, 400? So we'll say 400 and it drops down to a silly price of 280, is everything and every way that they were advertising the property specific to the purchase agreement. Let me take it a little bit further. So you agreed to go from 400 to 280. Where does that happen at? Everybody knows that answer, right? So that's happening on the purchase agreement. That's where it's making the adjustment that, okay, we know what we said in the MLS. Here's what we're saying now with the purchase agreement. This is what we're agreeing to. But when we were promoting in the MLS, we were saying for 400,000, I'll give you all this stuff, but I'm no longer giving that to you. So it really then needs to be addressed on the purchase agreement. So if there's personal property that was being left with a price of 400,000, you better darn well make sure it's on the purchase agreement if that is expected to be left. If it was expected that there would be a home warranty, that should be addressed on the purchase agreement, that we're still expecting all that personal property, all those appliances plus a home warranty, it needs to be on the purchase agreement. If it does not state it on the purchase agreement, then the buyer's going to lose out. Yeah, I'll actually share with you in regard to that specific situation. I had a listing years back in Fenton. We were including appliances. In the eyes of this seller that I represent, that was about $4,500 worth of appliances that they just bought. They just bought it for the house. They're moving out to Arizona. And offer comes in, it's got the appliances on it. Couldn't negotiate, they write another one. Couldn't negotiate it, the appliances were on it. They finally wrote a third one, no appliances on it. And I specifically had told the seller, look, there's no appliances now. They're saying they just want the house, forget the appliances, there's the price. If I'm right, that now matches what you're really looking for. They go, oh, they accept the offer. We close 2 days later, they're out according to the terms of the purchase agreement with post-sale occupancy, post-closing occupancy. They show up, no appliances, I get a call. And the agent says to me, Darwin, we got a problem. I said, what's that? They said, there's no appliances there. I said, why is that a problem? She says, well, they were included. He says, no, they weren't on the purchase agreement. She said, no, Darwin, they were on the purchase agreement. I said, no, specifically the reason they accepted your last offer that we've just closed on is because you didn't have the appliances on the purchase agreement. We thought you had adjusted knowing what our primary negotiating issue was. So they took them with them. They're on a truck to Arizona. She says, well, that call ended. I get another call. Yeah, but Darwin, they even had it on the seller's disclosure. What does the seller disclosure say regarding that? It's just saying that they work, they don't work. But it also says this, just above, something to this nature. Unless the appliances, this is a statement just for the verification as to the play, unless included on the purchase agreement. This does not mean that they stay. It must be, it says something to the point that it must be on the purchase agreement. Disclosure statement doesn't automatically include appliances just because they disclosed. So yeah, everything is dependent upon what we do with the purchase agreement, that it must be on there. Because I'll tell you, I don't know what she did, but I'm guessing that she bought a washer, a dryer, a stove, a refrigerator, a microwave, and did I get them all? Because she bought all the appliances. I'd be quite certain of it. That was her error regarding that. So let's
Darwin?
see.
Darwin?
Yeah, go ahead.
In regards to that, like a dishwasher is attached and a oven that's built in is attached. So that wouldn't apply in those cases, correct?
Yes, but the only, remember the old Latin proverb that I've taught you? Anus protectus. Yeah, that one takes a while to sink in for a second. Cover your backside. Even though it's built in, even though it's screwed underneath the cabinet, it's could be even hardwired for the dishwasher. Items like those, let's write them out just so that we've got ourselves covered. But yes, you would be correct, because at that point they become permanently affixed. And if you think about it, that's kind of how we were addressing the aspect of the TV mounts, was from that aspect. So it's a definite cover that backside.
I got a question. Oh.
Yep, go ahead.
What if it is stated in the MLS that there is the dishwasher and, you know, all that fun stuff? It has to be on the purchase agreement in order for it to stay, you're saying?
Yes. And I even, well, here, think of it this way, Alika. we were agreeing to we were saying we'd take 400, but we accepted 280. Are they still gonna pay 400? The answer
No.
is no, they're gonna pay 280 because that's what the purchase agreement was. So always remember, real estate is different from so many other contracts. Real estate agreements must be in writing. Must be in writing. Is this the agreement that will address the new buyer commission? It does the 395. Okay, so that's on here somewhere. Although, again, the purchase
I didn't see
agreement.
it, Darwin. I didn't
Oh,
see
well,
it.
yeah, paragraph 24.
Okay, let's see. Well, gotta get there.
And of course, by the way, we discussed
Uh.
whether or not to leave this on the purchase agreement. Obviously, in the end, we said, okay, leave it on here. But remember that we're not parties to the agreement. We're not parties to the purchase agreement. This is an agreement between the buyer and the seller. So it doesn't need to be here, but it kind of puts everybody on notice, particularly a title company, that yes, the buyer's agent, buyer's broker is charging $395 broker compliance fee.
Oh, no, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the conversations we've had about now the new law that buyers may need
The
to
actual
negotiate.
commission,
Yeah,
no, it does not, because it's on our seller agreements and on our buyer agreements. So
Okay.
when we take a look at those, that is on there. If we got time, I'll pull those up. But yeah, it is on our new agreements that are in, I believe, all of our document places that can be completed. Time inspection period starts ticking the day of or day after fully executed. So that's an interesting question. So if we go back, inspection. If buyer does not notify seller in writing within blank calendar days from the date of final acceptance. So it starts ticking 24 hours. Well, we'll say 24 hours, but not really. If you signed at 11 o'clock at night, you kind of only got 9 days now. But it'll start ticking from the date of execution.
So Darwin, the fully executed is one bottom lined by buyer or seller signed?
Yes. Let me
Yeah, so-
clarify. So acceptance, or a lot of times you'll hear the term meeting of the minds. That occurs, acceptance, or how is it worded here again? Calendar days of final acceptance of agreement that buyers, so final acceptance of the agreement. The reason it's generic, remember that the buyers can make an offer, sellers can accept. Is that acceptance at that point when they go, or they go click and click? That is not acceptance yet. Not acceptance until notice of acceptance has been delivered. So when they send, hey, we've signed, here it is, that email by itself was the notification of the seller's acceptance. That is all that we really need. So if it took buyers 2 days to acknowledge the seller's acceptance, that doesn't cut it. It was when the seller accepted it and we received the notification. The notification, the delivery of acceptance was made. Okay. Now, if the seller rejects and makes a counteroffer, then they sign not an acceptance yet. But when the buyers sign accepting the seller's counteroffer and we deliver it to the listing agent, that now is the acceptance. So the key is Did a seller accept as written? Did the buyer accept a seller's counteroffer? That's going to determine what the final date of acceptance was. Hopefully that's clearer than mud.
So yeah, the date of acceptance can be a full day after the seller signed it. And then that's the date that the inspection period starts.
Yeah, because it could be that they signed at 10 o'clock at night and the agent didn't send the notification of acceptance, didn't deliver notification of acceptance till the final warning. But even though the seller signed it that night, what was the date that notification of acceptance was provided? So that's a key part. Could make a difference. So not just the purchase agreement date when it was signed, but at what time did you actually deliver? So those emails that you send or the emails that you receive could really be the determining time factor. And if that's clear as mud, typically we don't ever have to worry about it. But sometimes people want to get kind of sticky with it. Okay. Any other questions towards this? Let me do this then. Bum, bum, bum. Do. I'm going to pull one of our, do I still have that generic? Exclusive listing agreement. Here is where the compensation comes in. So if you read the first part of this, willing to pay, and you're going to pay the brokerage firm a fee equal to $395 and a commission equal to 6% of the sale. So the $395 is addressed right as part of the compensation. Okay. I'm hoping if anybody was ever getting questions of what that's for, you won't get any questions for it anymore, because this is what we charge, $395 and 6%. We know that's the 180, but here's where the cooperation is changing. Cooperation and compensation. It is simply if the seller is agreeing with us, which they should like 99% of the time, they're not going to initial this. And indicate acceptance by initialing. Now, this is not what's currently there. What you currently have are two sets, one to say yes, one to say no. After we got it out there was some great feedback, formatting. This is going to change, but just know that they're initialing to say, yes, we'll offer compensation. We will allow you, the listing broker, to offer compensation. But remember the guidance. 0 to a sub-agent, 3% to a buyer's agent, 3% to a transaction coordinator. That's our guidance. And if you think that you offer less than 3% to a transaction coordinator, then let me come visit with you, because there are loads of reasons to pay them a full compensation and not less. Most time what I'm discovering is people really, we haven't really discovered what a transaction coordinator does in regard to agency. So there's been a lot of clarification to that. Okay. So this will be the most updated that we will have toward that. Everything else is pretty much simple. The only thing I would guide you on with this, unplatted lands, is one that you may not be familiar with. Basically, we're talking acreage is about the only time that you'll have that. And with this, I'm going to say I believe that it will allow you to put all. Because what we're saying to a seller is the highest value for your property is if there are any divisions left for the parent parcel, from the parent parcel, it's more value to transfer that. If that's got you going, what are you even talking about? We'll actually probably have a HTT on that subject. So know that. I'm going to jump back. I think there was another question here. I do want to throw this out. Everybody knows that a buyer agency contract and a seller's contract can't be canceled or revoked by mutual consent. It's the only way it can happen. Okay. And there's a question Holly had, what if the FSBO asks us for help on a private sale? Then I'm guessing that FSBO knows you. Okay. Because we're kind of talking, what do we do in regards to agency? If you've heard me before, I have very compelling direction that we should be representing someone. One, because we're human. Matter of fact, that's the primary one. We're human. And worse than representing someone is representing someone but telling them you're not. Or you're representing someone but you're telling that you're representing someone else. So if we're going to represent someone, represent someone. We, matter of fact, I'm going to put it this way. I don't believe that a transaction coordinator is suitable in probably 99.9 cases. I mean, anymore, I cannot think of where it would be something that we want to do. Go ahead and represent the party that came to you. So in the case of a FSBO helping us, FSBO came to me, I'm going to represent the FSBO. If I'm putting it together and let's say you were, it's like literally it was all together and I'm going to do it for 1%. Represent the seller. If the buyer came to you because they worked out a deal with a FSBO and said, hey, we got everything worked out, all the agreement, all that's got to be done is put down on paper and somebody help us close it. Represent the buyer. So Holly, hopefully that addresses what you were asking with that question. Yeah, John put it here. Please remember to keep up with all the timelines and if needed to add an addendum amendment to keep in line and updated. Yeah, that's back to that. Don't assume that those things are going to be automatically extended. They don't always do that. Let's see what else. Yeah, I got that one. All right, thank you, John. There's a lot of people that went together and putting the purchase agreement together to get it, because I can tell you there was a final and there was a final to the final. I think there was the final, and what I just showed you today with the purchase agreement is the final. So it literally, we thought we were set and had little revisions each time to where we had the last one. So yeah, John, thank you for that. Guys, is there anything else that you got questions about? Yeah, in regards to then, Holly, for what percent do we charge? Every situation's out there, and I think that we've set guidelines within ourselves and within the company, but that's one where take it to your manager and see what they would give you regarding that. Okay. Well, gang, I think that does it. Thank you for holding tight. Know that if you're part of Remind, the updated agreement for the purchase agreement is out there, and it is supposed to be fully workable with all the blanks functioning correctly. That gosh, even an additional condition will actually go to the clauses and so on. So Remind was really good. MI Real Source backed up slightly, but they do have the final purchase agreement as of the end of last week. How long it'll take them to get that set, I'm not sure, but we've done all the actions we can to get that final out there. So thank you for your patience, your understanding with all of this changes. If you've got anything, y'all know how to reach out to me. There brings a completion to our elongated Hot Topic Tuesday for January 16th, 2024. Hey, again, there's only 50 weeks later. to go here. So go out and talk to lots of people. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.